Okay, so this morning, those locally should recognize these faces. We have Elder Charles Pates, and we have Ariel Solis, and they're both members here at Village. And Ariel has shared with us a couple years ago. By any chance, how many of you remember him sharing before about a mission? Okay, a couple. So it's good to review. And the mission we're going to talk about today will occur in Guatemala. So before we look at where that is exactly, could you tell us, how did you get connected with this mission? How did you get this call?
So my wife and I got married in 2016, and she's from Guatemala. So that was a perfect connection. And she was already helping some of these communities. So she really encouraged me to say, you know what? Anytime we go, we got to do some mission. And so we decided to use our vacations to go, and half of our vacation do mission, and the other half, visit family and enjoy the country. So we connected with the local conference, and at that time with another independent ministry, and that's how things started.
So you married into it. You
Yes.
married into this mission. With your wife being from Guatemala, it's a natural to go there. But that is an interesting thought, that when you go to visit family, half is mission and half is vacation. Taking your vacation time from work to do that, we could pick up on that principle, I think, wherever we go for visiting family. Okay, so you've done work there before, and how did you sense this particular call?
So, this area, there's a community of a Mayan community up in the north side of Guatemala.
Mayan, as in the Mayan ruins.
The real Mayans, and so they don't speak Spanish. A lot of them have their own dialects. So there's about 22 different dialects. So when we go, we have to basically bring people that can translate from their dialect to Spanish, and then from Spanish to English. So it's a pretty interesting dynamic. And so anyway, that's how we got it, and the call to go help these communities, because a lot of them don't have Adventist present.
No Adventist presence at all.
And a lot of these, Mayan communities.
So it's an unreached area even.
Yes.
And Guatemala itself is not a conference, it's only a mission now, right?
Correct. It's just a mission, yes.
So it's a true mission field,
Mm-hmm.
pioneering work. Okay, so for those who are not as familiar with Central America, where is Guatemala? Oh, you had some other pictures first. The culture, okay. Let's go ahead. All right.
You're good, either way.
I was just going to jump right in and maybe share a little bit about my experience and as we got immersed into the culture there in Guatemala. It's interesting. I have limited experience traveling outside of the U.S., and so this was my second trip outside of the continental U.S., and I believe I got a little bit of the tourist treatment there. Everybody was incredibly friendly. The communities were safe. Family structures were very strong. And every place we went, we were greeted by the blessings of the beauty of creation. It was just a really good experience all the way around. And I've got a whole folder on my phone of the pictures that we took so that I could remember our experiences there.
All right, we'll come back to that again in a minute here. So where is Guatemala?
So you can see on the map, the bottom red portion is Guatemala, which is located in Central America. It's one of the biggest countries in Central America. So southern to the south, El Salvador, to the east is Honduras, and to the northeast with Mexico. And so you can see the little dot at the top, that's us there in Michigan.
It's directly below us, and I think the next picture shows it in connection with El Salvador, which we are more familiar with. You see El Salvador, how small it looks compared to Guatemala there.
Yes, you can fit the Salvador at least 3 or 4 times there.
And El Salvador seemed huge for those of us that were there and traveled by bus for a short time. So Guatemala is huge compared. Okay, so it's up to the left there of El Salvador. Yeah. So you took a scouting trip there for this particular mission. You've been there before, of course, but for this particular mission, you took a scouting trip. And tell us something about that. I know that Charles was part of that. Who else was part of that?
So it was Pastor Ben there in the red T-shirt, and of course Pastor Dennis and Melody Page, and of course my lovely wife was there with us, and then also the Lenny, a friend of Pastor Ben's as well too, and he serves in the church in Traverse City area.
Then us, my wife and I. So the photo is separated because something happened. We were flying two different airlines, and ours got canceled. So they got there before us. So, and God somehow worked a miracle because we're supposed to be there before them. But anyway, mission trips always come with some surprises. So that's why we're separate.
Okay, so how did you meet up? That's crazy. Did they just stay in the airport and wait for you?
No, actually, my brother-in-law, Monica's brother, basically met him at the airport and brought him into this. Yes,
Good
no,
thing.
God provides.
That's right. Those mission trips, you have to be flexible. That's right. Okay, so what was that scouting visit like, Charles? You said the nature was amazing. This is your second time out of the country. What did you do on this scouting trip?
Well, as Ariel already mentioned, that part of it was for leisure and part of it was for ministry. And he is the second person from Village Church, or the second family from Village Church, that made that kind of a comment. And so my wife and I have felt really impressed to embrace that as well too. And so we are thinking that way whenever we have some leisure time or some vacation time. We make sure we do some literature evangelism, and especially with the staff that takes care of us when we're away. But that being said, the experience was really good. We visited 3 or 4 sites, and I remember traveling between the different sites, and I remember just how amazed I was at the commitment that the individuals who were working at each site had. And they were trying to fulfill what they believed to be God's vision for them moving forward. That was incredibly encouraging. And when you do mission work, you're hoping to be a blessing, you're hoping to bring encouragement. And when I left, I felt that they had encouraged me and boosted up my spirits as well too.
The commitment of people that have nothing, that put everything into it, and we have so much, and we kind of half-heartedly do things sometimes. So it's incredible to see. So you visited these different sites. You got to see some of the culture and the nature as you traveled from place to place. And you were spoiled by people who've been there before and took you to the most beautiful place. You were telling me about going up this mountain. Describe that scene again for us.
Yeah, well. First of all, we began hiking this mountain, and I am probably the least fit person of the entire group, which was funny. And we got up nice and early. We made a plan the night before to get to the top of this mountain, and it looked like it would be an impossibility. You couldn't see the top from where we started. It was okay. Let's try it. I'm up for the adventure, and so we did. And of course, we took a lot of breaks. Of course, we, prayed up there. We even broke out in song on occasion for those of us who were not too winded. And then we got to the top, and we had just the most normal reaction. We just worshiped God from the top of a mountain. We were adjacent to what is a semi-active volcano. And so we couldn't see the plumes of smoke coming up from the side that we were on, but once we made it down, we were able to. And we just looked around and we saw how God has preserved beauty in nature, even in this broken place, and even amongst ruins, and even amongst so much need. And even the trip up there was pretty exciting as well, too. We were talking about the greenest grass that I've ever seen before in my life, and the people working in the fields of vegetation, and they're healthy and energetic and smiling and content. And it's really a testimony, the entire experience was.
It sounds amazing. And it sounds like it's not the same as El Salvador. El Salvador is pretty arid, but if there's green grass, it's not like El Salvador.
Yes, Guatemala is pretty green for the most part. Up in the mountains is actually really cold, so they get to experience that a little bit. When you think you're going to Central America, you think you're going to 80, 90 degrees weather. Well, where we do the mission, you can get 40s at night, and there's no insulation. The windows are propped open, holes all over, so you feel like you're basically camping. So it can get pretty intense.
40s at night?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's not like El Salvador.
Yes. But luckily, we went in the dry season, so it's a little warmer. Actually, probably the warmest it ever been since I've been going to Guatemala, which I guess it was a blessing for the rest of the group. But the little bit they got to try it up in that location, it was just beautiful. And just really thing to point out is, the scouting trip was to try to relaunch something to go back to Guatemala. We've been helping there with Andrews University. When I was there, we used to bring students. We have gone with the Fairplain Church. We have done many trips to Guatemala. And, a couple years ago when we had the presentation here, our former pastors here, they were really looking forward to the scouting trip. And things happened, and, we got together, and Pastor Page said, let's finish up this scouting trip and see what God has in store for us. So the scouting trip was to literally go see what the needs are and assess if there's an opportunity to help. And obviously when you're there, you're reminded of all the need and all the ways in which we can help.
That's right. Okay, explain to us what these mission projects would be.
Yes, so we do have there's 3 different sites, so maybe I'll go the slide here. You see 3 different numbers there. We have a church that is currently under construction, and we'll share some photos of that in more detail. There's a Pathfinder site that it's recently been purchased to do, to encourage Pathfinder in the area. That this will be the first youth camp, so to speak, in Guatemala for this kind of activities. So we got excited about that. And then there's another location where they're building a school and a church. Really, really amazing story. So those are the 3 that we would like to highlight. So the first one, we can start with the Pathfinders Camp. And this is the site, and maybe you share a little bit about the site as well.
Well, the first thing I want to point out is that the Lord has done a 5 loaves and 2 fish kind of a miracle with this site. We got there on the site. It's beautiful. It's away from what would be the main part of the city, and so it's just surrounded by nature. Has a natural ravine right nearby. And it's like a blank canvas, but this is what's interesting. I've stood on the property there and paced around quite a bit of it, and I was told that it's just over 5 acres, 5.25 acres of land. Like, it's impossible. It's at least 12 acres. They said, no, it's 5 acres. It's at least 12. And so we put out our calculators. We all did 3 times, and we did the math, and it turns out it's just over 5 acres. But the footprint feels like 10, 12, 15
because
acres.
Because of the up and down and the way it's divided by trees and things.
No, I think God just blessed the land so it's bigger, but not on paper. So the taxes are less. I don't know what he did, but the numbers just wasn't numbering, wasn't mathing. But a beautiful site, and I am particularly excited by this site because of the potential to serve 1,000 youth or more at this site here.
For the kids in the city to come out to the nature, 5 acres is huge.
Yes. And so the current stage, as you see, this is literally a couple of months ago. They're finishing up a connection from the main road, so to speak, down to the camp. The camp is down in a little valley. And there's a river. The church also built a small bridge there, and that's what they were finalizing when we went to the site. And that's when we started getting tested on our endurance, because the photo doesn't show like too steep, but we have to leave our minivan up in the hill because there was no way for us to go up again if we drove it down. So it's pretty steep. But there's a big need for the Pathfinders. They're already using the site every Sunday. They have about 400 Pathfinders that come and train and do Pathfinders here from different churches around that area. So the goal is to build a pavilion, an open pavilion, to accommodate about 1,000 Pathfinders. And the other need is to have some sort of shower and toilet facilities, which would lend itself for a small mission trip there. So that is one of the projects.
The project is to build the shower house and toilets, which means you won't have them as you're building them. So that would be a mission project.
Yes.
And they're already using the site, and then a pavilion for about 1,000 Pathfinders. How many Adventists are in Guatemala? Or what's the population to start with?
But Guatemala is about 18 million in the country.
18 million?
Million.
18 million.
Million, yes. So it's, there's a lot of people, but most of them live in the capital. And so, because that's where the work is. So when you go to the capital, it feels like a normal city. A lot of the resources that we have are there, but the moment you step outside, you see the big difference.
Like a third world country outside of the capital then.
Yeah.
And about how many Adventists do you know? in
I
the
don't
mission?
know the number. There's a lot of churches. This is an active country. So, when we see the number of Adventists in the country, I don't know that number actually, but in this area, they have, churches, if you have 1,000 kids, you're talking about 15,000 people
Right.
around that can be served.
So they're doing a lot of mission work. It's not like it's completely unreached. It's just where the languages are different that they
Right.
need more.
Even the mission have problems getting pastors there because they don't speak the language. And so that's another one of the problems that they have.
Okay. So this is one of the sites. And the second one here, Cuatro Caminos?
Yes. So maybe you start talking about that church.
This church is pretty fascinating. So this is actually where we end up worshiping for the Sabbath that we were there. And it was a privilege to actually be able to participate. Pastor Ben, in the picture earlier, gave the charge to the youth because it was a youth-focused Sabbath. And I had an opportunity to share Sabbath school, like I do here on occasion as well, too, and the children's story, which I always leave them on a cliffhanger, so when we go back, they have to find me and get reconnected. But in this community, and there's Monica translating, but in this community, there was a miracle that the Lord did in order for them to acquire this property. And that's the point that should be highlighted. And so the owner of the property had it for sale. And then the church came and they desired to purchase it. And the asking price was significantly more than what the church was able to afford. If I'm getting the story correctly, okay, so this is the right side. So, of course, the church was praying about it, and the owner's heart was touched, and he decided that he wanted to sell this property to the church at such a reduced price that it ultimately lost money, basically, so the church can have this piece of property. It just so happened the owner owned not only this property, but the one adjacent to it as well. And by the way, this is a prime site. It is off of a main road, high visibility, and so the church members really wanted to do something big there because it would bring a lot of attention and a lot of glory to God. And so the owner sold it to them for meager amount of money at a loss. And then the Lord honored that decision by multiplying the price that he received when he sold the second property.
He got his money back from selling the other part to someone else, and the Adventists got it for a very small price. I think we heard about this story from Pastor Page when he got back.
Oh, okay.
I think so. And this is the one where the road is up high and you have
Correct.
to build up.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, I'm remembering now.
Good. Yes, so one thing to point out here, how people are paying for this church, it's really incredible. They do have some money, really, I get good accountants, when you ask them for the information. They need about $40,000 to finish this project. Right now, if you look at the previous pictures, they're actually worshiping in what is going to be the underground parking. All right, so they put up walls, they put up the columns, they didn't feel, that's where they're worshiping as they raise money to actually put the slab on the roof to be able to actually start building the church and the classrooms on the first floor. So the church will be at the level of the street, and then they're worshiping right now what a future parking structure right there. So they'll demo those walls and they'll park in between those columns. And so, the need is about 40,000. So what they do is each family is assigned to cook every week some meals that then the members of the church go and buy from them, right, this food, and then they sell it also to the community. And so they raise money, and then they hire people and come build a little bit. And so that's where they're at.
Let me get this right. Some members cook food.
Yes.
The other members take that food and sell it.
No, they buy it for themselves.
They buy it and eat it from those members, and that's
Yes.
how they get their money for.
Correct. And then they sell whatever they can in the community. So the same members, rather than you feeling just like, okay, let me give you $10 or whatever, no, they buy a meal, right? They use it for their family, who's actually helping to build the church. So they really get creative in how to raise.
Creative.
Yes. And so that's one of those projects. So our main, I guess, on this one, they're moving forward. They're not waiting for us to do anything, but when you go there, the need we can, I guess what we can help is to helping giving money so they can finish faster.
So 40,000 to finish. This is like a big building, and it's a little complicated.
Yeah,
on
it's
top.
two stories. Yeah, the above story basically is the church classrooms and so on. So they basically about 40,000 to do that.
Build a small church in El Salvador was 10,000.
Correct.
So this is still a cheap deal. to
Yeah, so
put
when
that
he
up.
say prime, Guatemala, its properties are actually really expensive. I mean, that's surprisingly. This is actually really expensive because it's on the main road entering the second biggest city in Guatemala, Quetzaltenango. So really prime spot. The church didn't want to give him on having a prime location to be able to basically tell everybody that goes into the city, this is an SDS church. And as Brother Charles mentioned, God provided through a miracle. And this was not an Adventist. He later continued helping the church financially to finish the church. He continues to help them.
Wow. And maybe he'll go to this church one
Yes,
day.
yes. So we'll keep moving forward. This is the other project that we are helping with. And this is in Joyabath, Quiche. This is up in the mountains. Why don't you share the drive to this area?
Very scary.
Yes. So anyway, we woke up. It's about 3 hours away where that other church is located. Beautiful scenery going up in the mountains and through all the small villages. And so just that part is beautiful. If you get car sickness, obviously it's probably not as fun. But once we got there, this is a really small town, and they have an Adventist school and a church that is what you see right now. It's under construction. This project is pretty amazing. You can see some of the images of what the future church is going to look like on the left. One thing that I'm always surprised in Guatemala, when it comes to building churches, they don't like to make them simple. For them, it's not what you give to God. And so that's something that I just accepted, because you may say, well, you don't have money. How come you're building this, what I consider a beautiful church in this really small town? And, you know, I have helped in the past. I shared experience in Traverse City when we made a presentation where they asked me to help them design a church with a student from Andrews. So we're thinking, no, we got to keep it simple, keep that budget low, you know, all the good things that we do. And I sent that drawing to them. I didn't hear back from them. When I went back, they just made that design much better, because they said, we need to give God the best that we can. So for them, the building is also a way of witnessing. This is a Catholic culture, so...
I was just going to say the Catholic churches are way beyond this, so they feel like they're nothing if they don't have some beauty to their facility.
Correct.
I want to jump in for 1 second, too. This is the building site where the members brought together a budget for the overall project. And the number was so astronomical that the members said, it's too high. We don't know what to do about that. And so the building planner said, what we do is we get started. And Ellen White gives us some encouragement about not waiting till we see the end from the beginning before we're willing to move forward and trust God. And I think the sturdiness of the structures that they're building is a testimony to the sturdiness of their faith, able to withstand the seismic activity for the region.
Right, the sturdiness would be important too with all of the volcano and earthquake stuff. That's true. And the beginning, without seeing the end, as long as they know it's God's call, this is what we need to do. And look how God answered. Little did they know people from America were going to come.
Yes, and I want to share something about, this idea of moving in faith. So this church, obviously the last image you saw, they used to have a small church there with a one-story school. They see the need to grow. And they said, you know what, instead of renting a place outside while we build and construction, because technically they took over the whole site to do construction, they took two projects at the same time. The school, it's its own separate project, and the church. They have two different building committees, one for the church, one for the school, and they're going at it both at the same time. It's pretty incredible. So what they said, you know what, let's move a few families to another area in this neighborhood, and let's go ahead and plant a church. So they did that. They did that like a year before, and that family came. That church raised money to build this church that you see now on the screen, to be able to have, a place to worship, not just for them. They planted a church, And this church got filled, right away. This is for about 100 so members, and within a year, now the church cannot meet there, the other church. So now they rent a space. This church has 100 members, and they're waiting to build that church. So it's amazing to see how these people don't stop, and they don't have money. Believe me, when you see these people, they don't have money. It's just God moving them forward.
Right. We are way over time.
Oh,
and it's so interesting. But I think we need to get to the bottom line here. I know this is a grassroots ministry that you started. Paige tried to get involved. I don't know if he's going to be able to with his ministry now. And then the pastor from Traverse City, I know you'd like to link with the village mission committee once our nominating committee gets done, and we have the new mission committee. But it's going forward regardless. You're going, no matter who's on board. How can we be involved in that? How can we donate for that $40,000 for one? I mean, you've got 3 projects there. How can people go?
Yeah, so our contact information is on the screen right now, Brother Charles and myself. I personally don't like to do things my own. I always like to go through the church. So our next step is to, like you said, connect to the village church. We have a really brief conversation with the pastor and try to find ways to see if people can donate through village. I know Pastor Ben Garcia out of Traverse City is also trying to do the same. We already have some people who are willing to donate for the project, and we are really looking forward to hopefully set up a mission trip that any of you guys can join us and experience.
You have an estimated date when you might go?
We don't have the date yet. We want to do it summer next year.
Summer of 2026.
2026. And so we just need to have that conversation and see if the village church mission committee would like to be part of it. And, we want to put the date that will work for that committee. And if not, we'll set a date and move forward.
It's good to see things moving forward, regardless. And God, as they do in Guatemala, you start and God jumps in and helps it complete. Let's pray before we stop here. Father in heaven, thank you so much for the enthusiasm and the commitment that's already involved in these projects. Not only the people there in Guatemala, but the people here who want to help them move forward. Father, I pray that any of us that are watching that can be involved in this physically by going to help build and help with the projects, or by finances if we can't go. Father, thank you again for inspiring us to do things with your direction and with your power. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.